Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Mechanics of StarCraft. We are redoing the Phoenix episode because something bad happened to it. I think it got eaten by something. Anyways, I am Potatoless. We have Zappy, Runek, Fonzie the Bronzy, and Noah we have Meerkat from Quantum.
Alright, everybody go around and say your name real quick, because people have been complaining that they can't tell who is who. So.
I am a Potatoless.
I am Fonzarelli the Fantastic.
You're Fonzie the Bronzy, we get it.
Yeah, if Fantastic now means Bronzy, then you are absolutely correct.
I'm Meerkat, or Meerkat the God, the media god.
No, you're just Meerkat.
Okay, and we are here today
wait,
because...
who the hell's talking? Oh wait, that's Zap.
Yeah, okay. So we should know me by now. I have a bit of an ego, and if we don't, I will be very, very depressed. Alright, so Phoenix.
Phoenixes, so,
Okay, so gravitic drives. Let's start with what we started with last week. Gravitic drives, go.
No, hold on. Let's let RuneK start.
Yeah, didn't we already go over gravitic drives? We can move on from that right now.
No, because we lost the data for the last episode.
Well, basically...
Okay, Potatolisk, just stop. RuneK, go.
There's basically two things about the Phoenix that is really, its key traits, and the first one is how it fires while moving. And how it'll, basically backpedal while being able to fire.
Okay, well, really, it doesn't really need to point in a specific direction if you've got a gravitic drive, at least with how, we've talked about before how it might work. Because what you would essentially be doing is creating tiny singularities in front of you as you move along, and if you suddenly decide that in front of you is behind you, you'll be flying backwards. The only reason it has to, it typically does move in a direction is probably because the pilot is looking in that direction. Like, the cockpit faces that direction.
Right, so, the way that the Phoenix is aesthetically built, it looks like the quote-unquote front of the Phoenix is the direction that the wings are swept. But you could just generally think of the cockpit as like a rotating ball, and the wings are really just what's the word I'm looking for? Rails for the weapons to just launch off of, and have really nothing to do with its aerodynamics, right?
I mean, yeah, that could be, if you notice when the, Phoenix actually shoots, the shots curve around the wings, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we actually talk about the weapons themselves, but that could be a method of making the Phoenix smaller, while still retaining the same acceleration tracks for the weapons, is having them curve around the wings like that. Then you'd have to have those wings in the kind of odd shape that they're in, so that your projectiles would still end up going forward. I don't know, can anyone think of any other reasons it might be like that? Meerkat, maybe?
Oh, well, I theorize that maybe, possibly, in the event of the gravitic drive dying, it at least has some sort of functionality to be able to glide softly down to the, planet that is hovering over, instead of dying.
Crashing the ball of flame.
Yeah.
And that's reasonable as well. If you're gonna design something, you might as well get as much use out of it as you can. So there's no reason not to have a dual purpose for the wings, I suppose is what you're saying.
That sounds fine.
Anything else we want to talk about? Fonzie, maybe?
Moving?
Bronzy. Anything unusual you noticed in bronze about Phoenixes? I hear
it can move and shoot.
Whoa, wait. I'm sorry, back up a second. Say that again?
It can move and shoot.
At the same time?
At the same time.
Whoa.
What?
Whoa.
Yeah,
whoa.
guys, it's pretty sick.
I'm
that
shocked.
Sounds like it breaks all kinds of rules of physics.
That sounds like it's insanely overpowered. How is this thing not been removed from the game yet?
Because they don't do much damage.
They do
Potatolisk.
damage.
I'm sorry, you asked how they have not been removed from the game, and I answered. That's how a conversation works. Someone asks a question, someone answers.
You know why?
Yeah, but your answers are stupid.
That's the true reason, though. That's how they keep it
why
going.
they have to remove the game is because they can't shoot the ground.
Actually, they can pick up units, but they can pick up units.
Okay, but I don't want to talk about the graviton beam.
Physics.
I mean, okay, so there's no real specific reason why something moving and shooting at the same time is so crazy. Void rays do this. Motherships do it. Carriers are a bad example.
They actually don't move and shoot.
Well, the interceptors
the carrier
do.
itself
The interceptors do.
kind of can and can't at the same
Yeah,
time.
the interceptors do. Nothing that Terran has in the game moves and shoots.
Diamondbacks.
Can.
Actually, Banshees do.
Diamondbacks can.
Vikings.
Don't they work off
Vikings
of
cannot.
momentum?
Technically, they can.
Technically, they can in the cinematics, but if we're
Well, no. If you watch like a good player using a Banshee, I know Fonzie wouldn't have any idea what this is, but if you watch a good player using them,
microing a Banshee because they're one of my favorite units. You'll see that it's basically moving.
Well, we all learned how to do that if any of us played StarCraft Master.
It's
Anybody?
true.
oh yeah, StarCraft Master. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
Physics.
Which
Well,
part
let's
of
talk
it
about
is analyzed first?
But moving, shooting.
Moving and shooting.
Do you
Go
think
ahead.
that it's lore based? Like in the lore, it cannot fire on the ground. Do you think it can't do that?
Well, I think it could probably strafe like any fighter craft could.
That's interesting, actually. Why can't it shoot down?
Well, it might be the shape of it. I don't know, honestly.
Well, okay. Let's start talking about the weapons then, and we'll see if we can't arrive at an explanation through that. All right. So the weapons are called ion cannons. This is fairly straightforward. And what that actually means probably is that it's some sort of a plasma cannon where you've got some sort of heated particles to the point where they've become ionized and the outer layers of electrons are stripped away. Hence ions. The ions are being shot in a giant clump, accelerated around the wings. Presumably there's some sort of magnet system in the wings to do this, and then launched at the target. I can say right off the bat it makes sense that they do bonus to light, because something like that would seep through the cracks and inconsistencies of lighter armor much more easily.
Similar to the way a Hellion roasts things, in the sense that it goes through cracks in the armor.
Yeah, essentially. But why would it not be able to hit the ground? This is something I'm a little more...
Let's assume that the path that it takes is straight, and since the Phoenix never goes down at a curved angle, well, relatively straight. By straight, I mean like on one axis, it goes straight, obviously. So let's assume that it can't go on the y-axis, and it just goes straight, and the Phoenix never goes pointing downwards, ever.
But
where do you ever see them point upwards as far as we can tell?
Hold on. Do Phoenixes have the ability to actually hover in,
Yes. They have
They
gravitic
do?
drives, which allows them to do that.
They can basically just sit in the air, yeah.
well, can we think of any
okay.
reason why they wouldn't be able to point down? Can we think of
Well, I
something?
was going to say if they couldn't, like, slow down enough without losing their altitude or
Because it just
whatever.
doesn't look like, to be honest, it just doesn't look like it'd be possible. You know,
Yeah, it doesn't look like it'd be a very good unit
like if it,
for...
if it
Okay,
pointed
but
downward, it just looks,
Guys,
it just looks
the
odd.
problem with that is that that only applies if it's generating lift aerodynamically, like an airplane. If it's not doing that, which if it is, then it wouldn't be able to do things like fly backwards either. If it's not doing that, it can be as slow as it needs to be.
Maybe it also has a gyroscope for stabilization purposes, and that prevents it from also going downward.
I was thinking something similar along those lines.
What?
But why would it need something like that?
Okay, good point.
Well, that would put a severe, like, disadvantage, though, for, like, dogfights. I mean, if you were to think about an actual battle happening, that would... Like,
Which
if they
would be
had, like-
awesome. I would
It
love
seems
to
to
see a
always be-
cinematic with Phoenix fight in it.
Oh my god, that
Oh,
would
yeah.
I would
be
love to
amazing.
see.
Wait for Legacy of the Void.
That
But
would
Blizzard's
Void.
never going to do a Protoss cinematic, so...
Oh yeah, we're never going to see more than Zeratul out of any Protoss unit in cinematics, because...
Yeah, that's...
Okay,
Hey,
say
maybe we might see some Colossus roasting the hell out of everything. And, like,
Actually, we haven't even seen carriers since StarCraft 1, in like one of the first couple of cinematics. Alright, maybe it has something to do with the weapons themselves. I mean, maybe, the Ion just, the plasma itself can't stay together, flying from somewhere up high to the ground. Like, it just disperses in the atmosphere. That would explain why it has a limited range as well. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, because, I mean, you would think that the range from the ground to the air isn't that high, just based on the fact that a marine can hit air.
Okay, well, while we're on the topic of range, we go over
as far as the marine hitting air, I would just say that's a balancing, whereas for the Phoenix, it could
Okay.
be more.
Excuse me.
But we have to kind of assume that balance and gameplay mechanics can work together and still make sense in the StarCraft unit. I mean, we can't just write things off to balance, I don't think.
No, I know, but I'm just saying as far as the Phoenix, I find that not being able to shoot down, that could probably be based on more, but I just don't see the Marine, that one, making any sense whatsoever.
Guys,
anyway, the anion pulse crystals.
Because if we're trying to keep a general common sense, logical theme of how we discuss things on this episode, because...
Well, if we're going to try to make sense of a logical theme and continuation of how we discuss things, we would probably want to start by not taking your suggestions. I mean, you rarely ever lead us to something that we want to talk about.
I was actually trying to be quasi-serious.
Okay, so the anion pulse crystals.
Activate your physics side of the
Alright, this is actually chemistry. An anion is a negative ion, just in case anybody hasn't taken basic chemistry yet. An anion, well, Fonzie didn't. An anion is a negative ion, and plasma, you arrive at that by having positively charged. You get where I'm going with this. The outer layers of electrons are stripped away, so you end up with a positively charged gas-like substance. So the anion pulse crystals, increasing the range makes sense because if you add some sort of negatively charged crystals that are presumably... Okay, the pulsing probably just relates to the fire rate of the cannon, right? Because it's not a constant stream. You add in some negatively charged crystals, you have greater acceleration, greater centripetal force on the going around the wings, for example. You can then shoot the plasma out faster, and it should be able to go farther before it breaks up.
Okay, that makes sense. This is something that we talked about in the last cast that was broken, but do you think that the ions that travel through the wings, they travel through coils?
What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate a little bit?
We were talking about how when you use coils to super accelerate the ions, does that make sense?
I'm sorry, so just use like a magnetic coil to accelerate the ions? Yeah, I mean, I see no reason why it wouldn't have to do that, I guess. But I see no reason why it has to in particular either. I mean, that's just one method of accelerating it. That would be a good method, I'd say, but...
Okay.
It does... Yeah, we just don't have enough information on that to say definitively one way or another it does do that or it doesn't do that.
Okay.
So...
what else do we need?
Are we going to talk about the
graviton beam?
Because I have
Someone else talk about it first.
Okay, I'm going to start off by saying that this is going to sound stupid right off the bat, but it's the closest thing I can get to somewhat realistic.
Okay, well, first, before we do that, let's talk about what we know about it so that we all have the same base to go off of.
Okay.
For judging your terrible idea.
Okay.
First, we know it is some sort of beam.
Correct.
Second, we know it lifts things off the ground and then holds them stationary in the air. Third, we know it takes somehow all of the energy out of the Phoenix, because the Phoenix is then unable to do anything while it's lifting something. And 4, we know that it...
can't lift buildings or massive units.
Okay, that, and it has the word graviton in it, which is a really crazy, like, super in-depth theoretical physics word for the transfer particle for gravity.
So I'm going to
explain the word graviton.
This is going to be difficult. Basically, there's a theory in quantum physics based on the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where you have transfer particles for the various fundamental forces, and basically the one for gravity is the graviton. That's really as much as I can try to explain right here.
Okay, so there's going to be something that discredits my theory kind of right away.
Okay.
But we're going to get rid of that for a second. Pretend the beam doesn't exist for a second. Just bear with me.
All right.
And we use the graviton. What is it called? In the Phoenix? I'm drawing a blank. That it uses to float.
The gravitic drives.
If it uses the gravitic drives to create singularities, one by one, to lift and then hold up a unit of light mass, because obviously that would take care of why it can't hold massive units, because it can't create a singularity powerful enough to hold a massive unit.
I mean, that kind of makes sense, but how is it creating a singularity?
Thanks, I don't know.
The same way
That's your job.
Same way that it flies?
Same way that it flies.
Yeah, how does it do that?
we didn't get to this last time. So.
Okay, I mean, maybe. I don't know how to explain the beam out of that, nor do I know how to create a singularity. Okay, here's my theory on this. Magic.
And it's just as bad.
No, actually, a better explanation would be aliens, because it's Protoss.
Oh my god. Yeah, I've got nothing on this. I think this is a rather stupid ability.
I have something.
Alright, go for it.
I know there's a group of scientists, who are trying to make a working tractor beam.
Okay.
Yeah, you had a link last time. Do you still have it?
I'm trying to find it right now. I didn't bookmark that shit.
Okay, well, real quick first, we don't know how it creates the singularities just yet, but does that make sense that it could use singularities to lift things up? And
it makes sense, but it doesn't fit what we see. I mean, we have a very clear beam heading from the Phoenix to the target, and it's also very isolated. If it had something like a singularity, we would expect it to pull more, it would pull, say, 2 Marines. If, with the same size singularity that it would, say, lift a siege tank.
They can lift siege tanks?
Yes, they can lift any non-massive or non-building unit.
Yeah.
Non-building unit, that was genius.
OP.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because the siege tank is clearly larger than a Marine, so why can't it lift multiple things?
Right, it should, in theory, be able to lift multiple Marines, if that would be the case.
I'm pretty sure in an actual battle, they would be able to lift groups of Marines.
Potatolist, we've been over this.
Yeah, I know, but it's obviously balance purposes. And
No, we've been over this. We can't, unless we have a reason to say that what we see isn't what actually happens, we can't assume that random things happen.
So would I be able to assume that because the mass of maybe it can only target one mass, because if you have 2 Marines, they're obviously not connected unless they're holding hands. They're really not connected. So
okay. To do that, and this actually fits a little bit better with the graviton part of this. What you're essentially talking about is negating gravity's effect on some mass to try to lift it up.
Right.
The problem with that is that, one, I have no idea how to do that. I have no idea how you would do that. Gravitons are actually the least understood of all of the transfer particles as far as the theory goes. So I can't really think of a way that you would be able to do that. And second, why would it say that is what happens for whatever reason? Say it's also confined to one continuous mass. Let's just assume all that. Why would it stop at the height of the Phoenix?
Because the Phoenix only wants to bring it to its level, right? So the other things shoot it.
Target.
Right, but I mean, if essentially you've got a switch to flip gravity on or off, and you flip it
Why
off,
not into the atmosphere?
why? Yeah, well, it would lift up the Marine, say, to the height of the Phoenix, but then it should keep going if it's got some sort of velocity up,
Two
and
things.
nothing is pulling it back down.
I have two theories on this. One is that it just basically, like he was saying, it switches it off. They want it to bring it to its level. And the other one is
Well, right, but saying that they want...
It drags the unit to it rather than just lifting it up.
Okay, let's handle those one at a time. The first one is that it wants to bring it up to its level, but what is allowing it to enact what it wants to do?
Probably it's Kadar and crystals, aka man.
Well, but like, okay, say you turn off gravity on something and it has some sort of, it, you know, kicks the ground or something, and then it has an upward velocity.
Right.
What force acts on it to stop that upward velocity when it gets at the level of the Phoenix?
I see what you're saying. I would say the Phoenix itself. The Phoenix would just stop it right
Phoenix
there.
slowly turns off the amount of reverse gravity
To stabilize it.
that impacts the victim being lifted off the ground, and then the gravity of whatever the hell they're on also still exists and will always exist there.
Okay, so Potato List doesn't know what he's talking about, but I think I know what he's talking about.
Of course not.
What he's trying to say is that when it gets to the height, what he's saying is that you would have the object with some upward velocity, and then the Phoenix essentially turns gravity back on for the unit for a moment to provide the downward force to stop it from going back up. To keep going up. I mean, maybe. What was the second theory again?
The second theory is that it dragged it to the Phoenix.
Okay, and that's a little bit. That's a little bit more interesting, actually. We might be able to work with that one a little bit more. The problem with it, the biggest problem with it is that, whatever it's pulling doesn't get to the Phoenix. It stays at whatever horizontal distance away, while going straight up.
Yeah, it has a minimum distance, like a couple of feet, really.
Well, but like,
it should just be attached to the Phoenix, like it should get lift up so close that it's basically on the Phoenix.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically what I'm saying. Like, if it attracts something to the Phoenix, you think it would come up next to the Phoenix. It would go in a straight line towards the Phoenix instead of going in a straight line up and then sitting some horizontal distance from the Phoenix. It's as if only the vertical components of the attraction are in effect, which is somewhat interesting to me. Okay.
If you're wondering if a unit will go towards the Phoenix, if you've ever used a Phoenix and lifted a unit as you're moving away from it, the Phoenix will drag itself towards the unit as they meet in the air. If you ever want to test that out, you can go ahead and do it. But all you have to do is like move a Phoenix away from unit while it's moving away, graviton something on the ground, lift something up as you're moving away, and they will both meet each other in the air.
Okay, this is a little interesting, and what it's basically suggesting is that, one, the Phoenix has some sort of massively increased mass value, which was the discussion that we had last time, and I want to try to reiterate that.
Yeah.
But also, it's got some way of focusing its gravitational attraction towards something. In principle, this isn't too complicated. You would think of having a light bulb inside of a parabolic dish. You would end up with a beam of light, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I say right, but I have no idea.
Well, I mean, think of a headlight on a car. It's got a light bulb in the middle of it, right? But the light doesn't head everywhere, it only heads forwards. The problem is I don't know how you would do that with gravitons. I don't know how you would bounce gravitons off of something to send them all in one direction.
And I don't think any of us will know how to do that too.
Well, to be fair, usually when you say you don't know how to do these things, obviously if we knew how to do these things, we would be Protoss and we would have awesome devices.
That's a good point. Okay, but to the idea of...
Trying as close as we can to understanding them.
Yeah, to the idea of increased mass, this is something interesting as well. I've heard of a couple of experiments over the years. a lot of crazy kind of out there experiments, but one of them, and I remember hearing about a couple of years ago, and I mean, this had funding, this had a guy researching it full time, it was a somewhat legitimate thing, was he was trying to create a time machine. And a lot of the ideas for time machines are based around creating some incredibly dense mass, bending space-time to meet 2 points. We talked about that in the Warp Gate episode. I'm not going to rehash.
Okay, so basically,
he focused. What did Fonzie's picture just change to?
I turned back to Skype.
What?
And it looks like two dudes wearing masks from, I don't remember.
Anonymous or V for Vendetta?
V for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta, thank you. And they're just pissing at each other. And the piss
He
is
has a
colliding.
specific name though, that guy.
So,
Yeah, his name is V
guys,
for
I
Vendetta.
can sum this up. It's Congress. It's a pissing fight.
Haha. Okay, back to the topic at hand, though.
Back to the proper topic. I'll go on a rant about Congress in my potatoes rant episode.
Yeah, you can do that some other time.
The basic idea of this man's experiment was that he would take a bunch of high energy lasers, electromagnetic radiation, or for those who aren't very scientifically inclined, light, and focus it on one point or around an area, creating a very high energy dense area instead of a high mass dense area. And then his idea was that thanks to, we know energy is proportional to matter, or to mass, by Einstein's equation E equals mc squared. If he gets enough energy from this light in this spot, it would mimic the effects of a high density mass, and he would get all the other fun stuff to go with it. So basically what we're trying to say is that for the Phoenix to have this increased mass, it might be getting it through its whatever power source back on Ire. It could get a large amount of energy. That would obviously disable the drives and the weapons because it has to use all of the energy to do this. Then and then in essence it would have an equivalent increased mass in order to do something, in order to pull things with. I mean, does that make sense? Did I explain it well?
I think so, but the problem with this is that the experiment failed, didn't it? Actually, no, it did fail. Because we don't
Potato List, there actually is a working time machine out there, just no one told you.
Yeah, I'll find Doc Brown later.
Well, I'm not sure if we discussed this, but if there was a time machine, it would probably only be able to go in the future, but...
Yeah, well, we don't really want to start talking about that right now. That's a whole nother argument.
Not full Marty McFly, okay?
Save time.
Fonzie's picture changed again.
I'm scared. Okay,
Fonzie, your pictures are getting progressively more disturbing.
Actually, no, the piss fight one was more disturbing.
No, I'm not sure what I'm looking at with this one. That's why it's more disturbing.
Look at a really creepy stoned dude, fat dude.
I kind of think it's Fat Confucius, but I'm not entirely sure.
Same here, but fat stoned Confucius.
Okay, anyway, so does anyone have any comments on... Does anyone have any comments on this idea that we're trying to talk about with the increased gravity and
It's
whatnot?
completely beyond my understanding.
I mean, Zap, you're talking like the whole audience is actually able to respond to us in the episode.
I want you four to respond. That's what you guys are here for.
I'm sorry.
It sounds like the most sensible solution to you.
This sounds like something out of a textbook, not instead of mechanics of StarCraft, to be honest.
Okay. Any other comments?
There's nothing more to go on the Phoenix, so...
I mean, we've really covered everything. Phoenix, not all that much. You have graviton beam, you have shoot while moving. We covered both of those.
Alright, well, I mean, let me explain before we end why my idea is a bad idea. Because, one, we don't know if that'll actually work. As I, was sarcastically saying to Potato Lisk, this guy's experiment has not yielded results. At least as of yet. Two, you would need a ton of energy. Like, a ton. You have to remember, you're dividing your energy value by the speed of light squared, which is a really, really big number to get your mass. So you would need way, way, way more energy than you would ever normally see in any real situation. And I'm not talking about, like, you'd need to set off a nuke's worth of energy. I'm talking about, like...
I'm gonna draw the line at,
several nukes, probably detonating a small star.
Why do you have a picture of Jesus jacking off?
No.
Oh my God, Fonzie.
Okay, that is the most disturbing one. We have all-
Well, you challenged me last time, Potato Disc. I mean,
Okay,
I had to
so-
step it up.
Are we ending?
Okay, to recap.
No, hold on. I wanna finish my thought before Fonzie derails us more with his interesting and very disturbing pictures.
Let me do
the conversation. Stop derailing us.
Alright, so basically you would need a ridiculous amount of energy, and the idea that it has access to this kind of energy invalidates our entire conversation, really for any of this. Right, because, yeah, exactly. If it has this kind of energy available to it, it can do whatever it wants. And if it can do whatever it wants with just this energy, why are we bothering to talk about it? I mean, we could essentially say, for everything, well, it's got all that energy. Right. We could answer any question by saying, all of that energy is available to it. So, that is kind of why we have to say, well, it's not that, because if it was that, the Protoss would be able to do whatever they want. And obviously they can't, because the Zerg still exists.
To be fair for a second, Stedman did say once in his scientific blogs, I guess, the Protoss basically can do anything they want. They just
well, he thought they could. But there's nothing that tells us that they actually can do that. I mean, to him, their technology looked very impressive, but he was just grasping the surface of it. He had no idea how far it actually went past what he knew. So that would explain why maybe he thought it went much farther than he was actually seeing, and that's why he thought it was like that. But, I mean, that's a lore discussion.
Well, about the K-Darn crystals, it gave energy to the ship and started enhancing its own systems passively.
Right, but they weren't making the ship, instantly teleport everywhere it needed to go. They weren't making the ship's weapons insanely powerful, like Death Star powerful.
Energy. It's not, I would assume that there's technology.
Right, but there was a limit to the energy, is what I'm trying to say. It's not this kind of unlimited free energy source that the Phoenix would
gathered
need.
Minerals or gas.
Exactly, and the Zerg would have been wiped out a long time ago, because they would be able to just say, okay, let's, throw all this energy into a giant laser, and boom, everything's gone.
Well,
I wouldn't, personally, if I was the Protoss, I wouldn't even bother aiming it. I would just hit everything with it, and then boom, problem solved.
Okay, so...
End of the Protoss campaign in Brood War, they kind of wiped out a whole lot of Zerg with a huge...
Right, but they still had a limit to what they could do. They could only, for instance, hit one planet at a time. And while granted they could vaporize everything on the surface of the planet, there was still a limit to what they could do. The planet was still there. It's not a Death Star.
They want to destroy the planet. Why would they want to destroy the planet?
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, why would they? I mean, it's infested by the Zerg at that point.
Destroy a planet. They just want to get rid of the infection on the planet. It's like
right, but in the
infection on your arm and you want to cut off your arm.
Okay, they have no resources for. Well, this is going off topic, so we should probably actually not go.
I'm still on topic about how
well,
powerful.
Guys, we'll cover this in the
go ahead.
Ship episode.
Okay, so I was gonna just quickly say, they are a dying breed that can't reproduce, and they obviously don't eat. There are no possible resources that they can't get from a different planet that would be on this planet. Why would they take the harder way around it and take the chance of the planet getting reinfected?
Yeah, and that's basically what I was trying to say earlier. Why would they not just vaporize everything? Because everything has the potential to be infested.
They have warriors who are, pursue the enemies with white hot fury, but they're still a largely peaceful race. That's actually kind of the point of them, is that they don't want to rule the universe.
Okay, well think about the invasion of Ire. Why not vaporize everything as soon as it gets there? If they have access to unlimited energy, they can do whatever they want. There's nothing holding them back from, oh, hey, look, the Zerg are coming. It's all gone.
Well, they could have limited their own technology. After all, they sent the Colossus.
Okay, but no, that still works for our theory, though. If they're limiting their own technology, they're limiting their own energy supply. Their energy supply is limited, and therefore we're still in business.
What? Sorry, you cut out that for a second. What?
If they're limiting their own technology, then their energy supply is still limited, and we are still able to talk about it.
Can we cover this in an entirely different episode?
Yeah, this is going to have to be an episode unto itself.
Okay, so in summary, to recap, weapons, they work by ions being fired off the wings.
Right, which is in essence a large plasma cannon.
Yeah. They fly through gravitic drives. And
Magic.
Fonzie the Bronzy has the weirdest amount of pictures, which leads me to believe he was thrown against the wall multiple times as a child.
That makes him just like Potato Disc then, doesn't it?
No, I wasn't thrown against the wall. I had to see Burger King kill my family.
Oh, whatever. Close enough.
Okay. So, you guys
That's
can
why
check us out on Facebook and I believe the Twitters as well.
The links are down below. I don't
using
know
all
why
them
anyone would
Twitters.
want to tweet this shit, because we're spitting
But,
out your
we
garbage at times.
I don't normally tweet them until they get uploaded.
Okay, so we are going to start a new thing. As you can probably notice, this episode was kind of a little dry. That's because we're trying to get it serious. Which is never going to happen with Potato List here.
Right, which means we will be kicking off Potato Disc after this episode. He will... screw it, I'm too lazy to actually come up with something here.
No, but we're going to make a new one, hopefully, called Off Topic Sci-Fi that we'll be doing like once a month or once a week. And it's going to be like a straight 30 minutes, no going over time, and it's just going to be us rambling about sci-fi things.
Yep, you noticed we spent a lot of time today talking about infinite energy and whatnot. Yeah.
He's fine now. Just for a second.
Alright, yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about, infinite energy and whatnot. We'll try to get all that. Essentially, the idea of the thing is we start the recording as soon as our conversation starts, so you get the awkward everybody says hi. And then we ended exactly 30 minutes, hopefully cutting somebody off in the middle of their statement.
We're going to have like a couple of multiple topics too. It's not just going to be the same thing. It's not going to be one topic. It's going to be a couple of little topics to discuss.
Oh, and lastly, the Potato List Rant episode is coming soon with the Blizzard trademark.